So, good day to everyone. So for this meeting, I will be talking about the uh, still on the chapter on gene segregation and integration, and I will be specifically talking about these topics. So first is on the dominance relationship. So I will be talking about the different types of dominance relationship. Then I will be talking about the multiple alleles and then the lethal gene, then modifier gene, and then last is yung pseudo allele na tinatawag. So, first let's discuss what is dominance relationship na tinatawag. So, when we say dominance relationship, it refers to how yung mga alleles in a locus interact to produce a phenotype. So, last meeting, I've discussed what is an allele. So, yung allele na yon doon sa parang gene in which it dictates yung characteristic ng isang animal, may dalawang allele yun. Yung isa coming from uh, yung one parent and then yung isa coming from the other parent. So, itong allele na to, so isa itong allele and then ito ay isang allele. So, bale may dalawang allele that will parang dictate. Although merong mga tinatawag na multiple allele which I will discuss later on, pero um, let's just say na may dalawang allele doon sa gene that will dictate yung um, phenotype, yung characteristic ng isang animal. So, when we say dominance relationship, it refers to how yung itong mga allele na to in a locus. When we say locus, this is a location of this gene on a chromosome. So it refers to how alleles in a location on a locus interact to produce a phenotype. So yun yung dominance relationship. So kung paano nga ba itong mga allele na to, they nag-interact with each other para makapag-produce ka ng mga um, characteristic ng isang phenotype. So, dominance relationship controls whether an offspring will inherit a characteristic from the mother, or some blend of both. So, yun yung dominance relationship. Since this is an interaction of the alleles, um, sa dominance relationship, it will control kung ano nga ba yung lalabas na characteristic. Like, for example, yung mother mo has blue eyes, yung father mo is black eyes, and then nung ipinanganak ka, yung eyes mo is black. So, ganun. It dictates yung relationship. It controls the um, parang chances whether an offspring will inherit yung characteristic from the father or from the mother. So, yun yung dominance relationship. So, more technically, when we say dominance relationship, they control the ways genes interact to express themselves as phenotypes in an individual. So, yun yung technical definition ng dominance relationship. Kung paano itong mga genes na to nag-interact with each other in order to para lumabas or to express yung phenotype in an individual. So, yun yung dominance relationship. Basta tandaan, when we say dominance relationship, this is where the alleles, the genes, interact with each other in order to parang dictate or in order to show themselves yung phenotype na mailalabas doon sa offspring, doon sa individual. So, there are three main kinds of dominance relationship. So, may tatlo. So, laging tatandaan ito. So, first, or no, um, hindi pala three, four main kinds of dominance relationship. So, first, you have yung complete dominance na tinatawag. And then, second is yung incomplete dominance. Third is over-dominance. And then, fourth is co-dominance. So, isa-isain natin yan. Kung ano nga ba yung mga differences, pagkakaiba, kung ano yung complete dominance, kung ano nga ba yung incomplete dominance, ano nga ba yung over-dominance and co-dominance. So first, let's discuss the complete dominance na tinatawag. So, The law or the principle of dominance states that the presence of a dominant allele will always mask the presence of a recessive allele. So sinasabi na kung may allele ka na dominant, yun yung lalabas na characteristic. Kung yung uh, allele na yun na dominant is nagdi-dictate ng yellow color, like for example, yung dominant allele nagdi-dictate ng yellow color, and then yung recessive allele mo is nagdi-dictate ng blue color. In a complete dominance relationship, the presence of the dominant allele will always mask the presence of the recessive allele. So meaning, yung lalabas, yung makikita na phenotypic characteristic or yung physical characteristic, yung kulay, is yung yellow. Since yun yung dominant allele. Yung characteristic na yellow, yun yung dinidictate ng dominant allele. So, you can see here in the diagram, you can see that when we say complete dominance, with complete dominance, the dominant allele completely masks the recessive one. So, here you have yung dominant allele na capital letter R. And then you have yung recessive allele na small letter r. So, yung dominant allele na capital letter R, it will dictate yung red color ng flower. While yung recessive allele na small letter R, yung i-dictate niya is white flower. Now, if pinagsama mo tong dalawa, since yung red color or yung dominant na allele is it will dictate yung red color, yung magiging kalalabasan ng mga offspring is red color. Bakit? Kasi complete dominance. Yung dominant allele, yun yung lalabas. Kung ano yung i-dictate na phenotypic characteristic, in this case is red color ng flower. Kung ano yung i-dictate na phenotypic characteristic ng dominant allele, yun yung lalabas doon sa offspring. So as you can see, yung offspring, since nag-cross yung dominant at saka recessive, naging heterozygous na siya. Meron siyang dominant allele na capital letter R, and then meron siyang recessive allele na small letter r. Pero yung lumalabas pa rin na phenotypic characteristic niya is red. Kasi nga, complete dominant. The allele na dominant will always mask the presence of the recessive allele. So, yun yung definition ng complete dominance. So, laging tatandaan when we say complete dominance, basta kung ano yung trait na dinidictate ng complete dominance or yung dominant allele, yun yung lalabas doon sa offspring. Yun yung makikita ng mata natin. Yun yung phenotypic characteristic na makikita natin. So, yun yung complete dominance na tinatawag. So, complete dominance is a form of dominance in the heterozygous condition wherein the allele that is regarded as dominant completely masks the effect of the allele that is recessive. So, in this case, makikita natin heterozygous na to. Heterozygous condition tinatawag. Kasi meron siya nitong dominant allele na capital letter R, and then you have yung small letter r na recessive allele. So, heterozygous condition na to. Pero, yung nakikita mo pa rin is yung dominant na allele, yung trait na dinidictate ng dominant na allele, which is red. So, yun lang yung simple definition ng complete dominance. As the name implies, it will dominate the recessive allele. Kung ano, basta laging tatandaan, inuulit ko kung ano yung dinidictate na trait ng dominant allele in a complete dominance, yun yung lalabas, yun yung makikita mo. So, hindi lang sa flower, pwede rin sa mga, like for example, doon sa mga cattle. So, let's take for example yung mga cattle natin. Yung cattle, yung dominant allele, nagdi-dictate na yung cattle will have a horn. Meron siyang horn. Then yung recessive allele, it will dictate na yung cattle will have wala siyang horn or yung polled na tinatawag, hornless. So yung walang horn. So in a complete dominance, pag nag-mate yung cattle that is horned na merong homozygous dominant na gene and then minate mo doon sa cattle that is polled or walang horn na may homozygous recessive na gene, yung kalalabasan ngayon ng offspring is a cattle that is horned pero yung genotype is heterozygous. So, kahit na pinagmate mo yung minate mo yung dominant or yung cattle that is horned with the cattle that is polled or not horned, yung lalabas pa rin in a sa situation na complete dominance is yung cattle na may horn. So yun. Kasi yung horn na trait, yung nagdidictate yung nung trait na yon is yung dominant na allele. So yun yung complete dominance na tinatawag. So, kung may complete dominance, then we also have what we call as yung incomplete dominance naman. So, in incomplete dominance, the phenomenon in which two true breeding parents cross to produce an intermediate offspring, also known as heterozygous, which is called yung incomplete dominance na tinatawag. So, sinasabi dito sa incomplete dominance na yung dalawang true breeding parents. So when we say true breeding parents, purebred talaga. Yung isa homozygous, yung isa homozygous rin. So walang pareho yung allele. So in this case, we have here sa diagram na to, yung true breeding natin is itong isang parent wherein homozygous dominant siya. And then yung isa is homozygous recessive. Now, yung homozygous dominant na parent, it will dictate yung phenotype na red color ng flower, while yung homozygous recessive na parent natin, it will dictate yung phenotype na white color. So, in incomplete dominance, pag nag-cross na yan, yung kalalabasan ngayon is a heterozygous na offspring wherein it will have the allele from one of the parents and then another from the parents. So, yung kalalabasan ngayon is yung gene niya is may dominant allele at saka recessive allele. Now, yung difference between yung complete dominance and incomplete dominance is that sa incomplete dominance, meron kang mabubuong new na phenotype. So, 'di ba sa complete dominance kanina, kung complete dominance yung situation, yung kulay ng offspring will be red. Kasi yun yung trait, yung phenotype na dinidictate ng dominant na allele. Pero in the case of incomplete dominance, yung kalalabasan na ngayon is an intermediate between itong red color and itong white color, which is yung pink color na. So, it is referred to as partial dominance or intermediate inheritance. Partial dominance lang. So, meaning, hindi siya nagiging red. More on, since yung isang parent is white, and then yung dominant color is red, yung recessive color is white, nasa gitna. Kumbaga nasa gitna nung red at saka white, which is yung pink. So, yun yung incomplete dominance. Hindi, parang partial dominance lang yung nakikita mo. Hindi mismong red yung makikita mo. More on the middle ng red at saka white, which is yung pink. So, in incomplete dominance, the variants, in this case, yung allele natin, are not expressed as dominant or recessive. Rather, the dominant allele is expressed in a reduced ratio. So, yun yung incomplete dominance na tinatawag. So, yung offspring natin, yung gene niya, yung phenotype niya, it is not expressed as yung dominant or recessive. Hindi siya nagiging red, hindi siya nagiging white, pero it is a dominant allele that is expressed in a reduced ratio. Meaning, hindi talaga siya completely na red, pero reduce lang, na-reduce na red. So, uh, on the concept of colors, kung dinagdagan mo nung white, yung red, magiging pink yun. So, yun yung kalalabasan. So, yun yung incomplete dominance na tinatawag. So, the incomplete dominance is referred to as dilution of the dominant allele with respect to the recessive allele, resulting in a new heterozygous phenotype. So, meaning, sa incomplete dominance, may tatlong parang trait ka na makikita. So, yung isang trait, in this case, yung red color ng flower, that comes from the dominant parent, dominant allele na parent. And then yung isa is yung white color na flower, which comes from the recessive allele from the other parent. And then pag krinos mo ito, yung lalabas is a dilution, reduced expression of the dominant allele, which is red. So yung kalalabasan now will be an heterozygous na offspring with a new type of flower or a color of the flower, which is yung pink. So yun yung incomplete dominance. So same with animals. Like for example, you have a dog na homozygous dominant na kulay black. And then you have another dog that is homozygous recessive na kulay white. Now, yung kinalabasan ng offspring, pag incomplete dominance, will be a dilution of the kulay black na color, which is yung gray. So, yung lalabas ngayon na offspring is kulay gray. So, pag nakita mong ganun, yung tatay is black, yung nanay is white, tapos yung offspring, yung aso na offspring is kulay gray, that is a case of incomplete dominance na tinatawag na. So, the formation of a third phenotype specifically with traits that result from the combination of parent allele is known as incomplete dominance. So, yun yung summary ng incomplete dominance. A formation of a third phenotype, in this case, yung pink color natin, specifically with traits that results from the combination of the parent allele, which is yung red at saka white. So, yun yung complete dominance na tinatawag. So, now we have discussed about complete dominance and incomplete dominance. So, now we have what we call as over-dominance naman na tinatawag. So, in some instances, offspring can demonstrate a phenotype that is outside the range defined by both parents. So, sinasabi daw sa over-dominance, yung phenotype na na-exhibit or nakita doon sa offspring, wala doon sa phenotype na ine-express ng parent. Wala doon, hindi mo makikita kahit i-dilute mo man or kahit i-reduce mo man yung expression ng mga phenotype doon sa mga parent, hindi pa rin yun yung lalabas na phenotype ng offspring. So yun yung overdominance na tinatawag. So in particular, the phenomenon known as overdominance occurs when a heterozygote has a more extreme phenotype than that of either of its parents. So, yun yung sinasabi. Yung daw offspring na heterozygote, extreme yung phenotype, kumbaga max, yung pinapakitang phenotype either na baka it will result to another phenotype, it will result to a new phenotype. So, a well-known example of overdominance occurs in the alleles that code for yung sickle cell anemia. So, ito. So, yung sickle cell anemia kasi, it is a disease of the red blood cell wherein yung amino acid, may na-delete na amino acid which causes a change in the shape or conformation of a person's hemoglobin, such that yung red blood cells ng person are elongated and somewhat curved, taking on a sickle shape, parang ganito. So yun yung example ng overdominance. So this change in shape makes the sickle red blood cells less efficient at transporting oxygen through the bloodstream. So the altered form of the hemoglobin that causes sickle cell anemia is inherited as a codominant trait. Codominant daw, parang ganito. So you have yung yung parent mo, yung like for example, yung parent mo, you have yung normal na red blood cell, na shape ng red blood cell. Then yung isa, meron siya nitong sickle cell na tinatawag. Ganito yung shape ng red blood cell niya. So yung normal red blood cell na shape, it is dominant, while yung sickle shape na red blood cell, it is recessive. Now, yung offspring mo, pag nag-mate itong dalawa, it will become heterozygous. Specifically, yung heterozygous na ito, yung mayroong dominant A at saka recessive A. So, yung itsura ng red blood cell, meron yung mga normal at saka meron na rin yung sickle shape. So, yun yung magiging result ng ng phenotype ng heterozygous na offspring. Now, with the codominance naman, neither allele is recessive and the phenotypes of both alleles are expressed. So, meaning sa codominance, like for example, you have here yung brown na cattle, and then you have here yung white na cattle. Now, if you cross this with each other, in a situation na codominance, yung kalalabasan ngayon is yung cattle mo will be white and brown. Makikita doon na white siya and then meron na rin parts na brown. So meaning, walang recessive sa kanila. Both of the allele that dictates for brown color and white color in a codominance are dominant and walang recessive. Kaya pag dominant silang pareho, yung kalalabasan, yung phenotype nung offspring will be brown and white. Kasi nga, dominant sila pareho, wala sa kanila yung recessive. So, na-express pareho yung trait, yung phenotype ng parents, ng both of the parents into the offspring. Kaya naging ganito, white and brown. So, codominance phenomenon in which two alleles are expressed to an equal degree within an organism. As a result, traits associated with each allele are displayed simultaneously. So, yun yung explanation. Na-express pareho yung trait from one parent and then yung trait from the other parent. Kaya naging codominance yung tawag. So, yun yung mga iba't ibang types of dominance relationship. So, meron kayong complete dominance, incomplete dominance, overdominance, and codominance na tinatawag. So, I hope na clear sa inyo yung mga yon. I hope clear yung kung ano yung mga different dominance relationship na tinatawag. Now, we will go to the multiple allele na tinatawag. Di ba sabi ko kanina, doon sa gene, it has two alleles. Dalawang alleles lang. Kasi yun yung sinabi ni Gregor Mendel, wherein he suggested that each gene would have only two alleles. Pero that is not truly the case. Sa multiple alleles, so as the name implies, there are multiple alleles that can dictate yung isang certain phenotype. Hindi lang dalawa. So, when we say allele nga kasi, it is described as a variant of a gene that exists in two or more forms. So, pwedeng ganito na allele, and then another one, pwedeng recessive na allele, pwede na dominant na allele, ganon. So, each gene is inherited in two alleles, one from each parent. Yun yung definition natin ng allele. Now, it is parang, this means that there would also be having two different alleles for a trait. So, offspring who have different alleles of a gene are described as heterozygous, whereas those that have genotypes made of the same alleles are described as homozygous. So, as you can see here, pareho sila ng allele. So, itong gene na to, it is a homozygous. While itong isang to, you could see na yung isa is dominant allele while yung isa is recessive allele. So, meaning itong gene na to, it is a heterozygous. So, although humans and other diploid organisms can have only two alleles for any given gene in genetics, multiple allele traits may exist at the population level. So, an example of this is yung multiple alleles is the ABO blood na group system in humans. So, yung best example natin ito for multiple alleles. So, kasi dun sa blood natin, there are 3 alleles for blood types in humans. So, yun yung tinatawag, yun yung A plus, B plus, O, mga O-type na blood type. So, yun. Tatlo yung allele that will dictate yung blood type ng isang human. So, there are 3 alleles for blood type. You have A, B, and O, and A and B are codominant, while O is recessive. So, when we say codominant yung A and B, pareho yung allele na A at saka yung B, makikita mo doon sa blood type. While yung O naman is recessive. So, if you have a blood type na AO, yung parang blood type mo talaga, yung yung lalabas na blood type mo is blood type A. Same with if you have a blood type na BO. So, if you have a blood type na BO, yung lalabas na blood type mo is B. Kasi yung O na blood type is recessive. Pero kung yung sa genes mo is parehong letter O, yung allele, then yung blood type mo will be type O. Kasi parehong O, parehong recessive yung blood type mo. So, yun yung yun yung lalabas. Pero if your blood type is AB, kung for example, AB, BA, ganun, then yung blood type mo will be blood type AB kasi they are both codominant. So, in summary, ito yung best example natin for multiple allele. So, hindi lang dadalawa na parang allele yung nagdi-dictate for a certain phenotype. Like for example, itong blood type natin, hindi lang dadalawa, hindi lang allele A and allele B, pero meron ring is pangatlo which is yung allele na O. So, yun yung multiple allele. As the name implies, multiple, hindi lang dadalawa, pwedeng tatlo. So, human gene exists in 3 allelic forms. You have A, B, and O. Yung A and B produce the type A and type B antigens respectively on the cell surface of yung mga red blood cells natin, whereas yung type O naman is a recessive allele and does not produce antigen. So, for instance, an offspring that got both the AB alleles will have the blood type na AB. So, yun yung explanation ko kanina. Yung offspring that got the allele A and then yung allele B na will have yung blood type AB. And that who receive yung double O na allele would have the blood type na O. So, yun yung multiple allele. Then, we also have here yung parang another example of multiple allele. So, Mendel's work suggested that just 2 alleles existed for each gene. Pero today, we know that that is not always the case. That is not palagi yung case na dadalawa lang yung allele that will dictate a certain phenotype. So, although individual humans and all diploid organisms can only have 2 alleles for a given gene, multiple allele may exist in a population level, and different individuals in the population may have different pairs of this allele. So, sinasabi daw na yung isang individual can only have 2 allele for a given gene. Pero on a population level, pag tinitignan natin yung lahatan ng population, meron kang makikitang multiple allele kasi mayroong magkakaiba ng phenotype. So like for example, itong rabbit na to, doon sa population, hindi lang black, hindi lang white yung nakikita mo. Meron ka rin nakikitang mga iba't ibang uri ng color like chinchilla at Himalayan na color. So meaning, merong multiple allele, hindi lang yung dominant allele at saka hindi lang yung isang dominant at saka isang recessive allele yung nagdidictate doon sa color ng mga rabbits natin. So since yung nakikita mo may 4 ka na variations of color, so meaning meron yang multiple allele na involved. So an example, let's consider a gene that specifies coat colors in rabbits. So ito, called yung CCC gene na tinatawag. Now, the C gene comes from 4 common alleles. So you have yung dominant allele, then you have yung recessive allele with a CH, and then yung recessive C na allele with an H, and then yung recessive C lang. So yun yung ano. So for the dominant allele na C, it will dictate yung color na black. While yung recessive allele na C with CH, it will dictate yung color na chinchilla na tinatawag. Parang black siya pero more on gray. Then yung recessive allele na C with the H, yun, it will dictate yung Himalayan na color na parang ganito. Merong white, tapos merong black siya. And then yung recessive C lang na allele, it will dictate yung albino na color. So yun yung mga multiple alleles that existed on the coat color of rabbits. So, a CC rabbit has a black or brown fur. A recessive C na CH rabbit has chinchilla color. To parang grayish fur. Recessive C with H rabbit has Himalayan patterning with a white body and dark ears, face, feet, and tail. So parang ganito. And then yung a CC rabbit, a recessive C rabbit is albino with a pure white coat. So parang ganito. So multiple alleles makes for many possible dominance relationship. So in this case, the black C allele is completely dominant to all others. So meaning, if meron ka nitong black, itong dominant allele na C, yung capital letter C, doon sa genes ng rabbit that dictates for the fur color, yung lalabas na phenotype is itong black. Kasi itong dominant C that dictates yung black color, it will dominate itong mga to. So meaning, ito yung lalabas if sa genotype mo, sa gene ng animal, meron ka nitong dominant C. Now, the chinchilla naman, yung recessive C with CH allele, is incompletely dominant to the Himalayans na may recessive CH and albino C alleles. So meaning, if meron ka nitong gene na recessive CCH at saka meron ka nitong gene na CH, yung mangyayari is incomplete dominance na. Yung mangyayari. So magiging ganito na. Parang a mixture. nung black at saka mixture nung Himalayan or yung albino. And then, yung Himalayan na recessive CH allele is completely dominant to the recessive C allele na yung albino. So meaning if you cross itong recessive CH na Himalayan with the recessive C lang na albino, yung lalabas doon sa offspring will be itong Himalayan because yung Himalayan color na allele is completely dominant to the albino color na allele. So, as you can see, maraming mga combinations na magaganap, maraming mga crosses na magaganap, at maraming more than one, more than two yung makikita mong coat color for the rabbit since multiple alleles yung pinag-uusapan natin. Hindi lang yung dominant allele, hindi lang yung recessive allele na black and white. Meron ring mga alleles that will dictate other colors. Kaya, yun yung sinasabi na multiple alleles. In a population yun pero pag sa individual, sa isang rabbit lang, yung talagang magdidictate lang nung coat color is dalawa lang. Pero within a population, maraming combination ng allele na magaganap kasi you have the presence of multiple alleles. So, meaning, baka yung isang rabbit, may allele na heterozygous C. Meron siyang dominant C at saka recessive C. While yung isang rabbit, meron siyang recessive CH and then yung isang genotype niya, meron siyang recessive CH lang. So, mga ganun na combination. So, within a population, makakakita ka talaga ng mga multiple alleles na tinatawag. So, yun yung multiple alleles. So, as the name implies, multiple alleles, hindi lang dadalawa yung allele na nagdi-dictate for a certain phenotype. Within a population, marami kang makikitang allele that will combine with each other to produce different phenotypes. So, yun yung multiple alleles. Now, we go to the lethal gene na tinatawag. Specifically on the recessive lethal and dominant lethal na tinatawag. So, ano nga ba itong lethal gene na tinatawag? So, when we say lethal gene, these are any gene that has an effect that cause the death of the organism at any stage of life. So, yun yung lethal gene na tinatawag. As the name implies, lethal. It is deadly. So, any gene na can cause an effect that will result to the death of the organism at any stage of life. So, when we say at any stage of life, kahit na nasa sinapupunan pa lang nung nanay, yung sanggol, sa embryogenesis na tinatawag, hanggang doon sa pagtanda, yun yung range kung saan pwede kang mamatay if you have itong lethal genes na tinatawag. Now, a gene when we say lethal genes ulit, another definition is that a gene whose effect on the phenotype is profoundly negative and causes the organism to exhibit many disadvantageous characteristics which can eventually lead to death. So, sinasabi na yung lethal gene daw, it will parang have an effect on the phenotype. So, hindi yun yung parang positive effect, hindi lang yung parang neutral na effect na it will dictate yung color mo, it will dictate yung height mo, it will dictate yung color of your hair, mga ganun na effect doon sa phenotype. Sa lethal gene, may negative effect doon sa phenotype. Meaning, when we say negative effect, merong lalabas na parang condition doon sa organism that may affect its health, that may lead to death. So, yun yung negative effect na tinatawag doon sa lethal gene. So, because of that, yung negative effect, as it said here, it will cause the organism to exhibit many disadvantageous characteristics. So, yun yung negative effect. It will parang render yung organism on a disadvantageous disadvantageous state or disadvantageous characteristic. Kasi lethal nga siya, nakakamatay. So, like for example, theoretically, or an example lamang, baka yung lethal genes mo is nagiging hindi ka masyadong nakakapag-produce ng maayos na, hindi ka nakaka-produce or nakaka-transport, hindi nakaka-transport ng maayos yung mga red blood cells mo ng oxygen. So, maaring ganun yung effect, yung negative effect ng lethal gene. So, meaning, kung hindi nakaka-transport ng maayos na yung red blood cells mo ng mga oxygen, then this may have an effect on your health. Baka ikamatay mo pa. So, yun yung lethal gene na tinatawag. So, lethal genes can be dominant or recessive. Either way, pwedeng dominant, pwedeng recessive. Yung fully dominant lethal alleles kills the organisms both sa homozygous and heterozygous conditions. So, sinasabi na kung malas mo na yung allele na nakuha mo, na yung lethal gene na nakuha mo, doon sa gene is yung dominant na lethal gene, dominant lethal allele, yung nakuha mo. So, meaning, kahit heterozygous ka, kahit na may recessive allele ka na hindi lethal gene, yung kalalabasan pa rin is that yung lethal gene pa rin na dominant yung magdidictate ng effect ng phenotype. So meaning, it can kill the organism even if it is a heterozygous. Lalong-lalo na if it is a homozygous. Kung dalawang dominant na lethal gene yung nandoon sa organism, doon sa animal, then yung mangyayari ngayon is talagang at some point on your life, on the life of the organism, mamamatay. So certain lethal alleles kills organism in homozygous conditions only. So yun, yung mga lethal alleles, pag heterozygous, may chance pa na hindi ka mamamatay. Pero if it's sa homozygous condition na, may mga alleles talaga, mga lethal alleles na tinatawag that can kill yung organisms. So, yung lethal gene, it was first discovered by Lucien Queneau while studying inheritance of coat color in mice. So, siya yung nakadiscover nitong lethal genes na tinatawag nung nagre-research siya doon sa color ng mga fur ng mice. So we have here yung experiment niya. So, when yellow-coated mice was crossed with another yellow-coated mice, segregation for yellow and brown body color was obtained in a 2:1 ratio instead of the 3:1 ratio that Queneau is expecting. So, ganito yung ano niya. Nadidictate dito na yung dominant na Y, it will dictate yung color na yellow, while yung recessive na Y, it will dictate yung brown na color. Now, yung ine-expect ni Queneau is merong yung lalabas na phenotype is 3:1. So, tatlong yellow, tapos isang brown. Pero yung nangyari, 2:1 lang. Dalawang heterozygous na yellow at saka isang homozygous na brown, na recessive. Kasi yung dominant na homozygous na Y, yung dalawang capital letter Y na gene, namatay. So meaning it is a lethal gene yung itong dominant na allele na Y. Pag dalawang homozygous ay pag dalawa sila doon sa isang gene. Pag dalawang dominant Y na allele yung nasa gene, pag naging homozygous dominant sila, then mamamatay yung rat. So, the brown individuals were pure and homozygous. Ito, whereas yung yellow individuals was heterozygous, yung nakita niya. This result may be explained on the assumption that yung dominant allele for yellow for the yellow body color is lethal in homozygous condition. So, overall, nakita niya na if yung dominant recessive yung homozygous recessive na allele, it dictates yung brown color, while yung heterozygous na allele, it dictates yung yellow color. And then, yung homozygous dominant na allele na sana is mag-dictate ng yellow color is namatay. Meaning, nakita niya na yung yung homozygous dominant na Y na yellow color, this will lead to, this is a lethal gene kasi namatay yung rat. So, yun yung ng experiment niya. Doon niya na-discover yung lethal gene. So, in that sense, meron tayong tinatawag na mga lethal alleles and we have types of lethal allele. So, first is yung early onset na tinatawag. Now, in early onset na lethal allele, it will result in the death of the organism at early stage of life. So, when we say early stage of life, hindi pa pinapanganak, na nagde-develop pa lang as fetus doon sa loob, sa sinapupunan ng nanay, nagde-develop pa lang, nagro-grow pa lang, namatay na. So, that is what we call as an early onset na lethal allele. Kasi, it resulted to the death of the organism at early stage of life. Now, another one is yung late onset na allele, na lethal allele, which kills the organism at their final stage of life. So, yung final stage of life, yung medyo matanda na. Kung matanda na yung animal or yung human, nasa mga senior level na, senior age na, then doon lang magte-take into effect yung lethal allele, yung late onset na lethal allele. Doon lang siya magte-take effect kung saan mamamatay yung organism. So, yun yung late onset. Now, we also have what we call as yung conditional na lethal allele. So, these lethal alleles kills the organism under certain environmental conditions. So, hindi siya yung lethal allele na magte-take into effect kung sa early stage or sa late stage ng life ng isang organism, kundi yung effect ng lethal allele makikita lamang if na-meet yung certain conditions, yung certain environmental conditions. So, we have here yung example sa temperature. Yung mga temperature-sensitive alleles will kill the organism at high temperature, but they don't kill any organism at low temperature. So, yung mga lethal alleles daw na conditional lethal alleles that are sensitive to temperature, they will take into effect, mapapatay nila yung organism when the temperature is high. So, when we say high, that is above or higher than the normal temperature within that area. So, kung kung na-experience ng high temperature yung isang organism, then meron siya nitong lethal gene na conditional na sensitive sa temperature, then mamamatay, magte-take into effect yung lethal gene and then mamamatay yung organism. Pero kahit meron siya nitong conditional lethal allele na to na sensitive sa high temperature, hindi magte-take into effect kung naninirahan yung isang organism in low temperature. So yun, yung mga nasa near freezing or below freezing na temperature, hindi magte-take effect itong lethal allele na ito. So yun yung conditional. Magte-take into effect lang yung lethal allele na ito if it met yung mga certain environmental conditions. So, we also have what we call as yung recessive lethal na tinatawag. So we have yung dominant lethal at saka yung recessive lethal. When we say recessive lethal, most of the lethal genes natin are recessive lethal na tinatawag. It is expressed only when they are in homozygous condition. So the survival of heterozygotes is not affected. So meaning, itong recessive lethal lang, na-express lamang if may nasa homozygous condition yung gene ng isang individual. So meaning kung homozygous pareho yung allele doon sa gene, pwedeng parehong dominant or pwedeng parehong recessive. So doon lang magte-take into effect yung recessive lethal na tinatawag. It is only expressed when they are in homozygous condition. Kung heterozygote, kung yung isang allele niya is dominant at saka yung isa is recessive, kung heterozygote yung isang individual, it will not be affected by itong recessive lethal na tinatawag. So, laging tatandaan lang na sa recessive lethal, yung naaapektaran lang is yung mga individuals that have homozygous alleles or homozygous gene. So, according to Queneau, the dominant allele A is a recessive lethal and it causes death to homozygous dominant na embryos at an early stages of development. So, sinasabi ni Queneau daw na yung dominant allele na A, ito, pwedeng different letters pero as an example, we have dominant allele na A. It is a recessive lethal. So, don't be confused kung ano, pag sinabing recessive lethal, hindi lang ito tinetake into effect yung mga homozygous recessive na mga individual. So, both yung homozygous recessive at saka homozygous dominant, basta homozygous sila. So, according to Queneau, yung dominant allele na A, ito, is a recessive lethal and it causes death to homozygous dominant A. So, yun. Pag itong recessive lethal na A, pag dalawang homozygous na, or pag dalawa sila sa isang gene, pag naging homozygous A sila or homozygous dominant sila, then it is parang cause death. It can cause death to the organism at the early stage of development. So, hindi lang ito recessive lethal, ito rin ay isang early onset na lethal gene na tinatawag na. Kasi it takes effect on the early stage of the development. Now, if we call naman dominant lethal genes are expressed both in homozygotes and heterozygotes. So, kung yung recessive lethal, nagte-take into effect lang if yung gene mo is homozygous recessive or homozygous dominant, dito sa dominant lethal, nagte-take into effect, mamamatay yung organism pag homozygote siya or heterozygote. So, both na yung naaapektaran. Now, yung dominant lethal alleles are very rare because you might expect the allele only lasts one generation and is not transmitted. Unlike yung recessive lethal na that is common, more common, itong dominant lethal rarely lang na nakukuha. Bakit nga ba rarely lang na nakukuha? Kasi it will only last one generation and it is not transmitted. Kasi yung affected na mga individuals yung may homozygous at saka heterozygous na gene. Pwedeng homozygous or pwedeng heterozygous na gene. So meaning kahit pag mayroon ka nitong dominant lethal, for sure mamamatay ka. So lesser yung chances na maipapasa mo pa itong gene na to doon sa offspring mo kasi mamamatay ka naman. So, yun yung sinasabi. Kaya, rare ito. Since it both affect yung homozygous and heterozygous gene, so kung ikaw na pinanganak tapos meron ka nitong dominant lethal na gene na ito, kahit na heterozygous man yung tinataglay mo na gene or homozygous man yung tinataglay mo na gene, mamamatay at mamamatay ka pa rin kung meron ka nitong dominant lethal gene na ito. So, however, just as the recessive lethal allele, it might not immediately manifest the phenotype of death. Dominant lethal alleles also might not be expressed until adulthood. So, yun lang yung in most cases lang na mamamatay ka, hindi mo na maipapasa doon sa offspring mo. Pero, meron rin small percentage na maipapasa mo pa rin. Bakit? Kasi, yung dominant allele, most kasi is na-express lang yung effect, yung mamamatay ka, until adulthood. So, when we say adulthood, then, most probably, nasa mga 40 ka na, nasa mga 50 ka na. So, meaning, meron chance na nakapag-asawa ka na, may may anak ka na, so may chance na naipasa mo tong dominant lethal genes doon sa offspring mo. So, yun yung sinasabi dito. Kasi, yung dominant lethal alleles only might not be expressed until adulthood. Until such time na baka may nagkaroon ka ng chance na magkaroon ng anak kung saan pwede mong maipasa itong dominant lethal na alleles. So, once the individual reaches reproductive age, the allele may be unknowingly passed on resulting in a delayed death in both generation. So, yun, yung sinasabi ko. Pag sexually matured na yung animal, sexually matured ka na, then you have yung dominant lethal allele, pwede, may chances na maipasa mo yung dominant lethal allele mo doon sa offspring mo. Tapos, after that, doon mo lang makikita or doon lang makikita or magte-take into effect yung dominant lethal allele. Doon ka lang mamamatay after mo na ipasa. So, yun. So, an example of this is in human is yung Huntington's disease in which the nervous system gradually wastes away. So, people who are heterozygous for the dominant Huntington allele will inevitably develop the fatal disease. So, yun yung parang classic example on the dominant lethal, itong Huntington's disease na tinatawag. Na yung affected part is yung nervous system natin na nagde-decrease, nagde-decay yung nervous system natin until such time na mamamatay ka. However, itong Huntington's disease na to, it may not occur until the age of 40 daw. So, 40, you have sufficient time para magkaroon ng anak, at meron kang chance na pwede mong maipasa itong dominant lethal na to. At which point, the afflicted person may have already passed the allele to their offspring. Kasi nga, yung Huntington's disease, it can only occur until on the age of 40. So, marami kang time, marami kang chance na pwede mong maipasa itong disease na to doon sa offspring mo. So, that's for the lethal genes na tinatawag. Now, we have here yung modifier genes na tinatawag. So, ano nga ba itong mga modifier genes? So, modifier genes are genes that affect the phenotypic and or molecular expressions of other genes. Minomodify niya yung molecular expression ng other genes. Now, genes that affect the phenotypic or molecular expression of other genes in a quantitative fashion. So, yun rin. Basta yung modifier gene, minomodify niya yung expression ngayon nung certain gene. So, the specific modes of action of the modifiers is not always known, pero may dalawang mode yan. Pwede yung dilution or enhancement. Dinidilute niya yung expression ng isang gene or ine-enhance niya yung expression ng isang gene. Or pwede rin na sinosuppress niya, suppressor. sinosuppress niya, pinipigilan niya yung expression ng isang gene. So, let's take into example ito. So, sa coat color at saka sa intensity ng color nung coat ng mice. So, we have here yung black. Yung dominant B is yung black color. It will express yung black color. Yung recessive B, it will express yung brown color. Then, for the intensity, yung dominant D, it will express yung fall color. And then, yung dominant D, ay recessive D, it will dilute or fade yung color. So, in a cross between itong dalawang to, nag-cross ito yung result. Meron kang nakitang 9:3:3:1. So, meron kang nakita na mice na 9 na mice that is black. So, meron siyang dominant B at saka meron siyang dominant D. So, yung kalalabasan ng coat color nung 9 na mice na yon is full na black color. So, yan, parang ganyan. Now, dito sa iba, sa another one, may nakita kang tatlong mice na yung color is black, may dominant D, and then meron kang recessive D. So, yun. So, yung ano niya, imbes na yung coat color niya sana is black, pero dahil meron ka nitong gene na to that will dilute yung color ng black, yung palalabasan ngayon nung mga tatlong mice na yon is diluted black, hindi na siya black mismo. So, meaning ito ay isang modifier gene. Since it modifies, it dilutes the expression of another gene. So, kumbaga, dapat itong animal na to, dapat yung nakikita natin is kulay black, yung coat color, nung tatlong mice na yun. Pero dahil dito sa presence ng modifier gene na to, it diluted yung black color. So, naging parang gray na siya. So, another example is, meron ka rin nakita na tatlong mice na yung color is, meron siyang recessive B na color, and then, meron siya nitong dominant D na intensity. So, yung kalalabasan ngayon is fully brown na color. So, parang ganito. Then, meron kang nakitang mice na yung genotype or yung gene is meron ka nitong recessive B na brown at saka meron rin siya nitong recessive D na diluted or faded. So, meaning, dapat yung color sana nitong mouse na to is kulay brown dahil ito yung meron siya nitong recessive B na it will dictate yung color na brown. Pero dahil sa modifier gene na to na it will dilute or fade yung color, naging diluted or naging faded na brown. So more on parang whitish brown yung kulay na nung mice. So yun yung example ng isang modifier gene. It will parang modify. Yung modification pwedeng diluted or pwedeng in-enhance niya or pwedeng sinuppress niya yung expression ng isang gene. So, yun yung modifier gene na tinatawag. So, the D gene in here does not mask the effect of the B gene. And the D gene modifies the expression of the B gene. So, yun lang yung explanation. In-explain ko na kanina. So, with that, let's go to the last topic, which is on the Suru Alleles na tinatawag. So, in Suru Allele, it is first demonstrated by Edward B. Lewis in 1951. Yung Suru Allele na tinatawag are closely linked genes having similar effect. So, the two genes with similar functions located on the same chromosome that are very close to each other, that they are genetically linked but are on different locus of the chromosome. So, yun yung Suru Allele na tinatawag. So, para maintindihan natin yun, isang example is yung star asteroid case and eye color in Drosophila. So, here we have yung gene color, yung according to Lewis kasi, when two dominants, we have here yung itong dominant S, and then we have itong dominant AST, are on the same chromosome, and their recessive counterpart, itong recessive S at saka recessive AST, are on the other chromosome. Ito yung tinatawag na cis form, or yung cis arrangement na tinatawag, which may result into normal eyes. Now, in another situation, in a transform na tinatawag or transarrangement, wherein yung dominant and one recessive is on the same chromosome and their respective dominant at saka recessive na allele is on another chromosome, the resulting phenotype is a mutant na phenotype which is reduced eye. So, sa pseudo alleles, yung genotype and location niya, ito yung nagdi-dictate or nagde-determine kung ano yung phenotype ng individual. So, yun. So, with that, that ends my video presentation on the topics on dominance relationship, yung sa lethal genes na tinatawag, mga modifier genes, at saka itong mga pseudo alleles na tinatawag. So with that, please go over this video lecture and thank you for listening.